All right, here's the homework 5.2 video. There are 8 questions in this homework assignment, and you might be like, well, that's impossible. I remember doing some of these examples, and a single example would have taken me like an hour to do. How are you going to give me 8? You're going to have an 8-hour homework assignment? And the answer is no. You're not going to go through this entire step of calculating a definite integral 8 times. Most of the questions, I think 4, maybe 5 of them, will more be theoretical stuff like what I tacked on to the end of the last video. And only, I don't know, 3 or maybe it was the 4th one's extra credit times will you actually be going through all these steps. And I don't think you'll ever see anything quite as hard as this hard example. This first question here, they tell you that the integral from 1 to 4 of f of x dx is 35 over 11. They don't even specify the function. They're like, there is some function out there, and the area underneath that curve from 1 to 4 is 35/11. And then when they ask you is how much area is there underneath that curve from 4 to 1. 2 things change here. One of them is relevant, one of them is not relevant. They change their variable of integration from x's to r's. The letter you choose doesn't matter at all. Don't let that throw you off. They're just trying to make the point that you can do any letter you want. As long as this variable matches up here, things all work out the exact same. I'll always use x's in this class. Doesn't matter if it's r's though, same thing. The relevant thing that changed is your bounds of integration. Instead of going from 1 to 4, they go from 4 to 1. Now we don't have this intuitive idea. What do you mean the area under the curve from 4 to 1? That doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, but abstractly, that still does have a definition, and I think I told you about that in the last video that I made. So take a look at that, and you'll be able to figure out this problem in, I don't know, like 8 seconds maybe less than that. Second question, it's kind of the same idea where you're not actually calculating the definite integral. You're given a bunch of information, and you're asked to figure this out. And this one's kind of interesting, I think. They tell you that the area underneath some curve, they're calling it d of u, but whatever, some curve, from -7 to 3 is 8. So I know how much area there is from -7 to 3. Oh, and I know how much area there is from -5 to 3. And the question is, how much area is there from -7 to -5? Might have to draw some pictures and stuff, but I think if you know this area and you know this area, you can deduce how much area there must be right here. Thinking about these in terms of area will answer all these questions. This is the same idea, but kind of flipped over backwards. They're saying from 9 to 19, the area underneath this curve f of x from 9 to 19, if you get rid of the area underneath the curve from 9 to 18, you're left with the area under the curve between something and something. Maybe draw a picture, erase some stuff, see what's left over. They want to know what numbers would go in place of a and b here. The area underneath the curve from here to here is the same as, start out with this area, get rid of this area. These first 3, they're kind of weird questions. I don't know. Don't expect to ever get tested on them. Maybe it adds a little bit to your understanding. If you find yourself spending more than a minute on any of these, just ask for help. I'd be glad to help you on these. The 4th question I think is a little bit better. They shade in some area here, and they tell you the equation of this line. It's y equals 1/4 x. Oh, that makes sense. The y-intercept would be 0, and the slope is 1/4 because I go up 1 and over 4. Rise over run. Anyways, they want to know this area right here. They don't want you to actually figure out what it is. They want to know which of these expressions represents this area. So we got a 4 coming into play and an 8 coming into play and a 1/4 x, and they're kind of like, where should you put them to make this make sense? I think one of these will align with this, and if you're comfortable with kind of what each of these individually mean, this should be another problem that takes you all of, I don't know, 30 seconds. Question 5, not so much. This is where we're going to spend some time. 5, 6, and 7 are going to take you a little while. Sorry about that. Work through the following steps. Ooh, I already don't like it, you might be thinking. I actually kind of like this problem. I like the steps that are laid out because, yeah, you just need to be able to figure out this answer. And the answer to this question is going to go right here. And you'll be done when you figure that out. But to get there, you're going to be doing lots and lots and lots of different steps, kind of like we did here. And what this problem does is it guides you through those steps. In case you're still a little bit sketchy on these, this will take you step by step through it. They ask you this question, I think you can immediately figure out A and B. And once you know A and B, you could figure out delta X. We did that at the start of all these problems, right? Figured out A, we figured out B, then we figured out delta X. The next thing they want you to do is figure out XI. Oh yeah, that's the next thing we did. We figured out XI right here. Before you actually type in XI, they'll ask you for X1, X2, and X3. Because some students have a hard time finding XI, and maybe if you list out the first few first, it'll make it easier to get this. I think what you will find after watching my videos is it's easier to do this, this, and this, then this. And then when you have this formula for XI, just change the i's into 1s to get your answer here. Change the i's into 2's to get your answer here. Change the i's into 3's to get your answer here. You might want to do these after you do this, but whatever works better for you is totally fine by me. Then what they want you to do is find the sum of the area of n approximating rectangles. And they're saying, note, your answer will include an n. What are they saying right here? They want this line. All right, they want the first line that you get after you get rid of all the sigmas. So all your sigmas are gone. You have this. Type this in without the limit part, just the stuff inside the parentheses, and that'll be your answer here. It won't, of course, be the exact same as my example because they're giving you a different function here in different bounds. But when you get to the step where you get rid of all the sigmas, type that in right here. And if that ends up being marked as correct, you know you're on the right step, you're on the right track. And all that's left for you to do is evaluate the limit as n approaches infinity. Do that, you get your answer here. All right, so those are the steps that they're walking you through for this function. Then you do the exact same thing with the same steps for this function. A and B, here's f of x. Maybe you can figure out all the different parts and get that integral. And that's probably enough, but I gave you a third one to do. Sorry. It's really good to be good at this stuff, and some people need more practice than others. I hope this isn't overkill for you. Here's the function. Ain't pretty. I think you can do it, though. They give you A and B. Go through all the steps. You can get your answer down here. And if you do all that, frankly, we're good. We'll call it good. You can be done with the homework at that point if you want. I always put an extra credit problem in at the end. I didn't know what would be a good extra credit problem in this section. What I settled on is just do it one more time, but now without the steps. All right, see if you can go through see if you can get the final answer without all the steps in between. I suspect that most of you will find 8 easier than 7 because you'll be good enough at these after watching the videos and working a few of them that you'd prefer not to answer all the steps individually. You kind of do the steps on your own and just get the final answer. At any rate, if you want to do it a 4th time, you'll get extra credit for it. If you don't, that's okay too. That's the end of this homework assignment.